Well, it's been about 8 months, but I'm back now, and I gotta tell you, I'm back because of the Don.
You can act like a man! What's the matter with you?
No, not that Don. This Don.
China!
Fired up because it looks like he's getting himself involved in the Convention of States fight, which is absolutely phenomenal. So we're going to talk a little bit more about that. I'm going to give my reaction to the Charlie Kirk assassination. Disgusting, disgusting, disgusting. And then we'll do a little live Q&A. So if you got questions, drop them in the comments. Let me know where you're watching from, and it's good to be back. Let's get into it.
Doesn't anyone notice this? I feel like I'm taking crazy pills!
I don't want you to ride. I don't want you to write to your congressman because I wouldn't know what to tell you to write. I don't know what to do about the depression and the inflation and the Russians and the crime in the streets. All I know is that first, you've got to get mad.
Has the whole world gone crazy? Am I the only one around here who gives a shit about the rule?
You have the luxury of not knowing what I know.
I want you to get up now. I want all of you to get up out of your chairs. I want you to get up right now and go to the window, open it, and stick your head out and yell, I'm as mad as hell, and I'm not going to take this anymore!
Welcome, everybody. Welcome. I am back. It is good to be back. I am having issues with the chat, so I do have the chats up individually, so I will be checking on them from time to time, just because I plan on having a little Q&A afterwards. But it's good to be back. I've been gone for about 8 months, and it seems like a long time to not be here. Just trying to get the broadcast ready. As a matter of fact, I should check and make sure that people can hear me. So give me a moment. I'm just gonna, because I'm expecting there to be some little bit of sloppiness just for the fact that I've been gone for quite some time. So I want to make sure that if someone, let me see here. Well, this is totally unannounced as well, so I don't even know if anyone's actually going to watch this. Got to keep that in mind as well. But nonetheless, you can catch it on the rerun. Just know that I'm back. And I wanted to just go over some of the Charlie Kirk situation. I wanted to just kind of, number one, let his wife know that me, like everyone else, has been praying for him, or praying for her, and her family. Horrific act, a lot of opinions out there on what should be done, what shouldn't be done, but one thing that I do know that came from it is just my entire Facebook feed. I actually go on Instagram now because there's actually quality content on there. Like there's actually meaningful content on there, and it looks to be quite obvious that there's clearly a revival going on in the United States and really globally, but to see the reaction to Charlie Kirk, just from the standpoint of just seeing globally, right? Like I saw revivals in Sydney, all over the place. I'm seeing stuff, and I'm just Sydney, Korea, there was New Zealand, London, and I didn't even know that Charlie Kirk had that kind of reach. So it was kind of wild to see that. But he does. And so, you look at what made him impactful and what made him such a big deal. It's just, he was able to convert. He was able to change minds. For all of us that joke around, that argument on the internet really changed my mind, said no one ever, right? Well, he actually did, and it wasn't just on, he was face-to-face in these debates, but also on the internet. A lot of these videos were what changed people's minds. Young people were looking for an alternative, knowing in their hearts that what they're learning in school was nonsense, and what they're getting from these influencers was nonsense, and just knowing that there's got to be a better way. And that void can only be filled by Jesus. And Charlie was there to kind of make sure that people understood that and understood why. He was very unapologetic, and he tackled, he tackled tough questions, didn't wane from them, whether you agree with his opinions or not, right? I mean, I know the fact that he did it so respectfully, and he would always say things like, I'm trying to think of an example where he'd be talking to someone and say, you know what, I see you're coming from a good place. And then go on, he said, but I want to explain this to you. I see you're coming from a good place, so listen to what I have to say. And they would be open to listen because it's very disarming. It's like, hey, he doesn't look down on me. Hey, this is not, he's not coming at me like this is an all-out prize fight, and it mattered, it mattered. And these minds changed. I went back and started looking at clips because I've been watching Charlie Kirk now for 10 years, for almost all of his time doing these debates. And I went back and looked at some of the original ones, and I said to myself, I said, here are a couple hundred kids, all of whom are just viper angry, like just angry to the core, and just coming at him with all of the arguments that aren't backed up by fact, but all the arguments that they learn in their university. And then I fast forward to his more recent ones, and now he's sitting in front of thousands of college-age kids, and 70-80% of them are wearing Trump hats and cheering him on, and they get it, right? And that's an amazing impact to have had. And I'll say, and I posted this, at least to Facebook. I don't know if I put something on X about it, but, I'm not a big fan of everybody going on the attack right now. And I'm not a big fan of, calling their employers and getting them fired. I'm fine if an employer finds out on their own that one of their employees went out and were doing this evil stuff. That they want to terminate him, that's fine. I take no issue with that. My issue was the actively calling employers and pushing, and then the argument, of course, was, well, they did it to us. You seem to forget, that they were silencing us and locking us down and ready to fire us from our jobs for not taking poison and all this. And I'm like, no. And none of that was lost on me. I actually almost lost my job. I did not take the vaccine. I almost lost my job over it. It was an incredibly hard time that I had to deal with. I haven't forgotten that at all. And as far as them censoring, my Facebook page, right? So right now I'm on Rumble and these other ones. And folks, I'm just going to stop for a second because I have to check my audio. It's kind of driving me nuts here. That I don't, I just kind of popped up without any notice. And I want to make sure my audio is tight. So give me 1 sec. I haven't forgotten that at all. And it's not tight. Censoring, my Facebook page, right? So right now I'm on Rumble. All right, so I just looked down and saw that I had 2 mics on, and I was like, that doesn't look good, since I only have 1 mic. Yeah, so it's corrected. I'm listening to myself because I'm not getting any feedback out there, so I just wanted to make sure that I didn't go on for. This is one of the things when you produce your own broadcast, you're gone for 8 months, you come back, and there's so many moving pieces when you're not paying for professional software. I do this on OBS Studio, that you need to just double check everything, and it kind of freaks you out. So I'm glad that I got that rectified. But back to the point with Charlie, number one, huge revival movement, right? Number 2, like I said, he's converted a lot of these kids' thinking to make them ask more questions, to make them, you get a lot of that prove me wrong, right? And that was kind of the point, was like, hey, I'm going to throw a bunch of facts that I have in my head that because I'm so well read and so into this, that I go out and find those facts to the point where I memorize them and can pop them off in a debate. I want you to remember the facts that I just told you, young man, and go out and try and debunk it, right? And I'm sure that these kids did. I'm sure that these kids went off and were like, is what he said true? Is what he said true? And then they go look it up and find out, oh my gosh, it is true. And now all of a sudden they're left second guessing, everything that they were believing and who they were listening to. And suddenly you've got a win. suddenly you've got a win, and you've got another heart and mind changed over, not to mention the millions that have come to Christ, as a direct result of watching his videos and listening to his arguments and listening to the way he positioned things. That man has forgotten more about some of this stuff than I'll ever know. And I, I'm sitting here with a Make Civics Great Again shirt, and, a lot of times I'll do Q&As with people, and, we'll go back and forth on stuff, and they'll walk away having learned something because I have a lot to offer. But at the same time, when it's all relative, like you put me up against Charlie Kirk, and I'm going to take a lesson. Now, I'll probably end up agreeing with him on most stuff, but like the little nuggets that he can throw out there are precious. And so many people found it precious, and you saw how many people have been coming out all over the world to vigils and everything else, the event they had on Sunday, and his wife, forgiving, talk about walking with Christ, right? So, and that's kind of where I'm coming to it from, because just a few weeks ago, just before this happened, my daughter, like I had been barking saying, I want to start going to church. I was starting to get fed up because I wasn't going, and I kept saying it. And then one day I just asked her, hey, do you want to go to church this Sunday? And I didn't expect her to say yes. I thought I'd end up either going alone or with my wife, but she was like, no, I want to go. And she meant it. Like when it comes down to it now, she's the one following up with us on the weekends, like, okay, what mass what service are we going to? And I'm just like, I'm just overwhelmed with joy about it, because I had always kind of felt like a failure. My wife is Protestant, I'm Catholic, and so we started going to a Protestant church because she was more the churchgoer than I was. Even though I went to 12 years of Catholic school, she was more the churchgoer, and so we went for a while, and we picked a Protestant church, and it was good people, and it was a good atmosphere and good everything, and I have my issues with the Vatican anyways, so I didn't mind trying something new and checking it out. And and now my daughter is going, and I never got her baptized, because it's not a thing in the Protestant Christianity to baptize at birth, so they don't do christenings and all that. And I kind of just, because I wasn't really in line with Jesus, I kind of just went along with it and was like, whatever, all right, maybe the christenings, they can get baptized later or whatever. And it was all just me pushing stuff off and not being a good Christian, or a good Catholic in that particular example. But in the end, she wants to go herself, and that's, I'm gonna say Charlie Kirk was the reason she wanted to go. Like I'll take some credit for that, but at the same time, it's there are a lot of people in her situation, like millions of people, who turned around, picked up their Bible for the first time, went to church for the first time in years or ever, and they did all that because of him, because of the way that he executed. And that's important, that's important. So, love to him, and there's not enough you could say, right? I am curious to see, a lot of talk about who replaces him. No one replaces him, right? It's just, I hope no one tries to. There's a few people out there who, look, I'm okay with them still doing the debates on college. I think that's important. I think they should still do that. I think that carries on his memory, but they need to be careful. Like I heard Tucker was going to go to a university, and I'm like, Tucker's good for a guy like me who's already in and, can take the cynicism, the criticism and all that. But, to these kids you're trying to turn around, I don't know that he's the best one for that. That's kind of the advanced course, right? That's how I see it. It's kind of the advanced course. But it is what it is. So another thing I wanted to get into here, because I don't plan on spending too much time, because I knew there were going to be production issues and other issues. And, I'm looking at it now. I don't even know if I'm in full sync here. So I got some things to tweak. My equipment has been moved, all of it, so that'll all be reconnected and redone and whatever. I don't have the chat room working. Although, again, I can't see how many people are watching. It's probably not many, I would think, because I didn't announce. I just kind of popped on. So, I don't know how many alerts are going to go out, but I did want to cover Donald Trump and Donald Trump and what Donald Trump has done. Now, I should have this. Let me see. I don't know where I put it. Donald Trump went ahead and posted Here it is. He went ahead and posted to True Social this. It's a post of an article, and the article by itself, is kind of like another COS article. Convention of States effort surges as Trump aims to shrinking size scope of federal government. But what makes it super is that he posted it. So he took that out and posted it. And this is the first time, to my recollection, that Donald Trump has made a public anything about Convention of States. Now, I've told you folks in the past, for those of you who were with me then, Donald Trump was, not Donald Trump, but Pete Hegseth was an avid supporter. Charlie Kirk was a supporter. I'll show a clip in a little bit with one of the COS grassroots, Silver Dreaming Wolf, who's a district captain over in New York. She did a quick interview with him. Just caught him in the hallway. They were shooting with a phone, but it was great that was on record because he's a huge supporter too. And so we got Hegseth, we got him, we got Huckabee, we got DeSantis. I mean, there's a lot of great people who support this cause, but we never heard from the president. So no one ever knew, exactly how he felt, about the movement. And now that he's posting about it, I feel like we're in. Like if Donald Trump goes ahead and gets this movement forward and decides to put his weight behind the movement, I think that we're actually going to get this thing done, and probably quickly. I mean, 19 states are already done. So shout out to COS Action and ConventionOfStates.com for their immense efforts over 10 years, getting 19 states to pass resolutions and showing up to all of the debates and showing up to the floor of all these state legislatures, and the grassroots who put in their time to show up on the floor and were, rehearsed and were well-spoken when they got there. All of that groundwork, has given us a launching point of more than halfway there already. And if Trump gets behind this, if he really does decide, and frankly, Trump getting behind the Convention of States is going to cement his legacy like nothing else will. This will be taught in history books 250 years from now as the time where it all turned around, as the time where the Republic was truly saved. Not just from Marxism, but from all of these, from the federal government in general. And, the efforts that have been done will not be forgotten. I tell COS grassroots all the time to take a look, when you're taking pictures at these events and at different things, like you should take those pictures and make sure that you got your best foot forward. Make sure, they get your good side, make sure, all of that stuff, because what's going to happen is those photos are going to end up being placed in these textbooks, and people will be looking at you some 200 years from now when they teach these classes about Article 5 and why it's so important and how it works and the first time we used it and all of it. It's all going to be important. So but now that Trump is on board, right, and he's on board with this post, and I was stoked when I saw it. All the grassroots I talked to and some folks in the leadership community within the Convention of States movement, it was just buzz. And, I encourage you all to go check out his Truth Social page and read that. Go to the article. It's another great tell. And for those of you who may not know, since I have been gone for a while and I have no idea who's picking this up live, what I want to start with you, and I'm going to start putting out some shorts as well to help give explainers as to Convention of States and help give people information. But you can absolutely, I would click the follow button right now because I'm back and I'm going to be coming on, and I can tie most things wrong with this country to being solved by a Convention of States. And because the topics are so broad that, that they leave that room. They're all restrictive, but they're broad enough that they leave room for a lot of change, right? Trump talked about wanting to get rid of the income tax. I got angry when they passed the big, beautiful bill because it just added all this spending, which was sucking up the money we were gaining from the tariffs. And the idea was that the tariffs were going to help offset the need for the income tax. So I was a little upset with that. But you know what? We can still get rid of the income tax. and replace it with a consumer tax, and have no issue with that through a convention of states. And the most beautiful part is that the federal government has no say. So what is it, folks, you might ask? So a convention of states, it is a process in Article 5 of the Constitution, which is the article that outlines how to amend it. All right. The second clause, so the first clause is the same way we've always done it, the same way we've done it, the 27 times that we've done it, or I would say maybe 16 times technically, since 10 came in one shot, but it's the way the rest were done. The Congress, House and Senate will both 2/3 vote on a proposal for an amendment. The language, what it's going to look like, what they want, the topics, all that. Then they send that to the states, and they require 3/4 of the states to agree to enact those amendments. And some amendments have been phenomenal, right? Some amendments not so much. The 16th and 17th, not so much. The worst year maybe in American history from a constitutional standpoint, 1913, for sure. For sure. It's when the 16th and 17th were passed. 16th brings income tax. For decades, they were trying to impose an income tax, and for decades, it was ruled unconstitutional. So they had to get an amendment, and they finally got it. Again, after decades of trying, they finally got it. And to those of you who want to point out the Civil War, yes, there was an income tax enacted during the Civil War. It was ended immediately after. And the reason why it was kind of overlooked is because if we lost that war, it wouldn't really make a difference, would it? So once the Civil War was won, the Union was on top, that was eliminated. And again, it started losing in the courts. And it would have forever lost in the courts had it not been for the 16th Amendment. So undoing that would be brilliant, because that was nothing more than a way to pay the interest on the debt, since at the end of 1913, they created the Fed. It's not a coincidence, right? So, but the Convention of States is a way to get that done. So the second clause is the states can do it without Congress. So instead of Congress proposing the amendments, the states can propose the amendments, which is brilliant. Okay, and it was put there, fought for by George Mason and a few others, but fought for mainly by George Mason, to make sure that Congress was not the only entity that could propose an amendment. It made no sense to him, because the reality is, as an anti-federalist, he knew that his fear of federal government was greater than some of the others, and he brought it out. He brought it out in strong voice that this can't be. If the federal government became tyrannical, which he believed it absolutely would at some point, then when would the federal government propose an amendment that would hurt its own power and restrict its own power? They wouldn't. And so that's why he fought for Clause 2 and got it through some 2 days before the document was signed. And thank God he did. Thank God he did. Because without it, we'd have no way. We'd be like every other nation in history, and we'd have no way to directly alter our own Constitution without asking permission from elected officials, who we all know, no matter how good they are starting out, they always get eaten by the machine once they get in. And that's something that he understood, and that's something that he didn't want to see happen, so here we are. Now, it's never been used before, but I'll explain it quickly how the process works. So the states will start to sign petitions, pass resolutions, and petition the government, petition Congress in particular, for the calling of a convention of states on the select topics. Now, every state needs to have their resolutions show the same topics, obviously, so there's no chaos when they go in. So they walk in, and there are punitive measures that they can enact if they wish on the delegates if they should try and go astray. But there are more safeguards even if they did. But the point is, that's the deal. They petition Congress. Once we get to 2/3 of the states, which for us is 34 states, now we can call the convention. Congress shall call the convention at that point. Once the convention's called, which is Congress's only responsibility in this, they're out of it. They have no say. The president has no say. The judges have no one has a say after that. The people who have a say at first are going to be commissioners who are commissioned by the states. They can send as many as they want, right? And the idea behind it is send the wisest people you know, right? And especially on these topics, right? So fiscal restraints, and I may as well throw the topics up here. So these are the three topics, okay? All 19 resolutions that have passed are on these three subjects. They cannot, the delegates, once chosen and head to the convention, they cannot come out with proposals for anything on any other topic that if it doesn't fall under one of these three, it's null and void. Now, that being said, once they're there, it's a simple majority. So they're there to work out the language, right? So the states send them, the states select them, they pick the topics, they send these delegates, go give us some language, right? And for these amendments. Now they're doing kind of what Congress did, where they're just coming up with the language, that some of what Congress did, because they're not coming up with the topics. So they go in, 26 is what they need right now, right? It's a simple majority to pass the proposal, to get the proposal through so that it can be presented back to the states. So they'll sit down, they'll have conferences, they'll go back and forth, probably yell at each other and go a little crazy. It'll probably be televised. I almost wish that it wasn't. The end result's going to be what it is anyway. I'd rather it not be grandstanding for cameras. I hate it when Congress is televised. I'd rather have them in there cursing at each other and being unprofessional and going at it and not worried about YouTube videos and YouTube clips and just getting the people's work done. But nonetheless, I can almost assure you, since this has never been done before, that it will be televised. And that's fine, because it's never been done before, people are going to want to see it. It's a great civics lesson. I'm okay with it, I guess, in this case, now that I've talked myself into it right here on this broadcast. So they go in, they iron out the language, whatever passes, whatever can get 26 votes, that's what they get to present, and then that goes to the states for ratification. And now 3/4 of the states need to sign on. Now, 3/4 of the states is 38 states. However, there are 99 legislative bodies in the United States. And you may say, why not 100? Nebraska only has one chamber. They vote on things like 50 times just to make up for the fact that they have one chamber, but they have one chamber. So that's why there's 99. Now, keep in mind, I believe it's like 13 individual committees, okay? Because, right, it works like anything else. It's going to pass committee, it works its way up the chain. So 13 committees or 13 single houses, right, can knock anything off the rails. So they need to be topics that are generally agreed upon by most Americans, right? And these are, right? I think when you poll term limits, fiscal restraints, and government overreach, you're looking at some pretty significant agreement on these three topics, right? There's no controversy in here. There's nothing crazy in here. Everyone can pretty much agree that we need term limits for Congress. Everyone can pretty much understand and agree that we need fiscal restraints, that our spending is out of control, and everyone can pretty much agree that the government has overreached. We just went through, I don't have to point any further than 2020, but there are examples all over the place. So those are the three topics, right? And, I used to have a website. Now I let it go because it was costing me like $400 a year. And I didn't have the time to update it properly and do what I had to do with it. So I just push everybody to conventionestates.com now. That's just my thing now. I just push everybody to conventionestates.com. And that's what really I should be doing anyway. Like I don't see a reason to really do anything other than that anyway. Because that's where you're going to sign your petition. That's where you're going to get yourself engaged. That's where you're going to have an impact. And so on that note, I will tell you, as I will tell you many times in the weeks to come, go to conventionestates.com. Sign the petition for your state, okay? This is a local thing, right? There are millions of volunteers around the country. This is a local thing. It's about your district. Right? Because the governor doesn't have anything to say about this process, right? No, when we say it's all in the states, it's all in the states' legislatures. Why? Because they're the closest to the people. The founders designed it specifically for that purpose. It's the guy who runs your district, not who, runs your state, that is the person who's going to be the big vote, one of the big votes in your state for this process. This gets done locally. You can go visit the people that are going to have an impact on this process. It's designed specifically to be that way. It's designed to come as close to directly from you as is humanly possible. And frankly, if your district gets upset, it doesn't take a ton of people to shake up a district representative. It doesn't. It doesn't take a lot of people. because the reality of the matter is those representatives, they're in there on small elections, because what's a city have? The average city maybe 100,000 people, right? Not everywhere is New York City and San Francisco. There's 100,000 people. 1,000 can swing an election. Because of that 100,000, how many are kids, how many are this, and how many are voting age, et cetera. You know, if 100 people show up to their doorstep, you know, petitioning for something, they're going to listen. And that's the way it's designed to be. That's the way it's designed to be. Right? And so go there. When you go to conventionestates.com, you're going to see where you can sign the petition. But when you do, and when you click it, you put in your address, it'll tell you who your representatives are, right? And they'll actually send a letter on your behalf to those representatives to let them know you support Convention of States, right? And that's important, right? Because you want to be counted, right? It's not about signing a petition just for the sake of signing a petition. It's about signing it so that you can be counted and that people know you're in, right? You're in or you're out. You can say, I'm in. And then if you click on the volunteer, you could do something as simple as social media warrior, right? Just advocate on social media. Everybody's got time to do that. You do it anyway, let's be honest. Go on there and but before you do that, and before they let you go do that, they're going to want to educate you on exactly how the process works, so you got your ducks in a row, right? Can you imagine Charlie Kirk not knowing the answers to any of the questions that these people were throwing at him, right? It would have been a disaster. It would have had the exact opposite effect. Part of his power was the fact that he was so well read that he was able to just pop off answers without having to go look stuff up, he just knew. Right? And that's the goal. That's where we want to have you, where you just know. You just know. They hit you with well, what about a runaway convention? Bang, you got a response. Right? Bang, you got a response. And that's the way all the grassroots folks are. That's the way I am. So I'll be more than happy. And for those, for those that see this even after the fact, feel free to leave a comment about with a question about Convention of States. I'll be more than happy to ask it. And if by some rare chance I don't know the answer, I have enough resources that I can go get it. Right? So, but 9.9 times out of 10, I'm going to have the right answer. So, but the key is that you have the right answer. That when someone asks you, you know how to advocate. Because, folks, this is how we take it back. This is it. And I think Trump now is finally getting that. And it might be because people like Pete Hegseth and others are in his ear. But I think he's finally starting to get it. And it's important. And it might have something to do with Charlie Kirk. Let me try and... I'm gonna play the clip. Shout out to Silver Dreamin' Wolf for number one, how cool it was to meet him, how chill your spine must be listening to it after what's happened. But let me just show you that interview real quick.
Why do you support the Convention of States?
Well, it's the constitutional solution to an overreaching federal government.
Absolutely.
A lot of people don't know about the Liberty Amendments, as the great Mark Levin has talked about. But what I love about the Convention of States is that it uses the Constitution as a solution, and that's not talked about enough. I think it's a piece. I think the idea of a runaway convention is ridiculous, and it's focused on the states. I'm a big 10th Amendment guy, and I think the power has to be vested in the states, and it should not be a political thing. And I hope that it's going to pass and it's going to happen. I'm a big supporter of whatever can help solve the growing fourth branch of government.
Well, believe it or not, in New York, one of the bluer states, we actually have the resolution in the Assembly and the Senate.
That's
and
great.
I hope to bring it to a vote next year.
Well,
I know I get shivers thinking about it.
That's great.
Number two, real quick, what do you suggest COS can do to attract more millennials?
Just talk about how government is infringing on their freedoms and liberties, and this is a solution. And focus on how this is not a conservative or liberal thing. This is a post-partisan thing. This was built in the Constitution as a pressure release valve the founders put in there to try to allow the citizens to push back against tyranny.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. And just one last question, your thoughts on the left's violence towards the conservatism?
People like me, yeah. Look, but they're losing the battle of ideas. They have to resort to mob tactics. And you see it time and time again, the growing leftist mob. They're filled with anger and hatred and spite. And we have good ideas. And we create jobs, they create mobs.
Exactly.
That's going to be on the
I
referendum
love
in
that
November.
one. I'm putting that on my T-shirt
Isn't that
next.
great?
Sorry, I think some chilling words there at the end where where Silver asked him, what do you think about the growing violence? And he kind of said, against people like me. And she agreed and said, yeah. And, it's, but you can see that he's an adamant supporter, right? He's into it. He's a firm believer, and that's wonderful. And kudos to Silver for having that interview. When I saw it, I was like, that was a great statement for the cause, and couldn't have come from a better person. And now that Donald Trump is on board, I question whether or not he knew that about Charlie's beliefs, and whether or not that's something he feels like, as a part of the legacy kind of thing. I don't know. It's all speculation at this point. He just dropped that post, and it's the first post he's ever dropped favorably about Convention of States. He never dropped an unfavorable one, but it's the first one that he dropped where it was just a clean explanation, and clearly he's suggesting something here, and I'm hoping, that this is the beginning. Because if he comes out on the stump and starts talking about it, I know the Trump supporters, as I've toggled with them back and forth over some issues, I know that if he gets behind it, they will trust it. And the fear mongering and all of that nonsense from these Marxist groups like Common Cause and the National League, National Organization for Women Voters or something, which is another Soros-funded group, and then JBS, which I don't even know where they fit in there, but it's one of those things where they've been fear-mongering for so long, and it's getting so tired, and it frustrates the grassroots so much that having Trump come out there and kind of override that, and people that have their faith in him, will carry it over. And things can move quickly. There are a lot of states that are right on the edge, and it's like one or two individuals in these state legislatures that are holding up the legislation. Trump can push us past a hump like that. And my attitude is, once this gets to, 28, 29, like we start getting in that range, I feel like the last ones are just going to fall like dominoes, because it's going to show the writing's going to be on the wall. Right. And when it's at 19 now, when it gets to like 24, 25, that's where I predict you're going to start hearing a lot about it on the news, all these Marxist stations. You're going to start hearing them bash it. You're going to hear JBS once again align with Marxists, even though they're generally a conservative organization on this topic. They are 100% in line with George Soros and the rest of the cronies, and you're going to start hearing the bashing, and I want to try and get that word out to you before that happens, so that when they do start doing that, you'll know the BS as soon as you see it, because you're going to hear it from Fox, you're going to hear it from all these demon networks, you're going to hear it from all of them. Right, MSDNC and CNN, like the establishment as a whole will never go out without kicking and screaming. They're not going to just pick up their ball and go home without fighting tooth and nail to stop a convention of states from happening, because taking that power permanently out of the federal government's hands, right, where we don't have to debate anymore when this is done, whether, what's the process to get rid of the the Department of Education? Well, we'll have an amendment that says the government has no place in education and should refrain from any contact with educational facilities, organizations, however they want to write it, but there won't be any more ambiguity as to how to deal with that. That regulatory agency will be dead. And frankly, I wouldn't mind a gut punch to most of these organizations. They write laws. They should not be writing laws. They don't write laws. They make regulations, which are punishable, which make them laws. And the idea that nobody voted for them is what those regulatory organizations serve to do is to be the scapegoat. So the politician can then say, well, I didn't vote for that. And that guy's terrible, and blah, 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 blah. And then go ahead and start beating up on the administrator and and pretend that like they're against something that they're completely for. Yeah, that needs to end. You want to do something like that? You want to pass a regulation that's going to be punishable? Well, then Congress start working. Start working. Go pass it. Let's see how. Put your name on it. Put your name on it. They won't do that. Right? Single subject bills. There's another one. Right? We had his name's escaping me now. Gates. When that whole thing with McCarthy in the House. And they wanted to change the rules, and they got the approval to change the rules. And one of the things they changed was single subject legislation. And then what happens? Omnibus after omnibus passes, like nobody gave a damn. It needs to be in the Constitution. You want to give $200 million for lizards on treadmills? Okay, pass the lizards on treadmills bill. Don't pass the Veterans Aid bill and then get mad at the people who don't vote for it as if they don't like veterans because they don't want to pay millions of dollars for lizards on treadmills. Which is exactly what an omnibus bill is. And there was plenty of garbage in the big, beautiful bill, too. No bill should be 1,600 pages long, 1,000 pages long. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. They're designed for you to not read them. And if you ever sat there and tried to read one, you'd know what I mean. You get to be after going through 20 pages of absolute BS that means nothing, descriptions of what words might mean. They then start referring you back to previous pages. You got to start going back. Referring back to Article 2. Hold on, I got to go back to Article 2. And okay, so then that sentence means this. And now the next sentence refers me back to this. And now it's ridiculous. Even lawyers don't read that stuff. It's just nonsense. All of that can end. All of that can end. Right? We don't want, it really, there's no limit. As long as it's, in this particular convention, there's no limit as long as it restricts the federal government, really. Because when you cover fiscal restraints, government overreach, and term limits, there's really nothing left after that. It really leaves the door open for the delegates or the commissioners to really have some fun, putting together some material and in their proposals. I mean, they can really have leeway to get pretty creative in how much they want to restrict the government. Now, as far as how much of that will actually get ratified, who knows? I mean, in the end, like the things that I want are not necessarily the items that I think are going to get passed, to be honest with you, ratified. I think a balanced budget amendment will get ratified. How much teeth it has to it, I don't know. But I think it will get ratified. Term limits will get ratified. Most states already have them. Most states also have balanced budget amendments already. So these are easy ones to get through. Regulatory agency restrictions, I can see that going through. The stuff I want to see go through, I want to see the 16th Amendment overturned. But I honestly don't think enough Americans understand how this country used to operate. I don't think they understand the value in a consumption tax over the amount of revenue would triple, at least double, if we went to a straight consumption tax over an income tax. And you say, oh, well, now I got to pay for, this much extra for what I want to buy. But yeah, you do. But you keep all of the money you earn, which means you control your taxes. They're not going in and stealing it from your paycheck before you even get it. And to those who have good jobs, and I don't mean billionaires, I mean people who are just moving up in life, maybe making $100,000 a year or 100 and something a year. That's a lot of freaking money. See, even if it's $75,000 or $45,000, it's still a lot of money because it's all relative to what your bill set is and where you're at. Now, there's some level of there is some level of income where you end up getting more back than you actually pay. That's ridiculous. So those people might not like it. But in this system, everybody contributes. Everybody. Even the homeless guy who's going to get his beer contributes. Everybody contributes. Right? The people that donated the money contribute. The people whoever spends it in the end, that's who contributes. And that's how it should be. Now, I'd love to go after property tax as well, but that's a local situation. That wouldn't fall under this convention. That's something that we need to handle on a local level. Because I don't mind paying extra money for goods as much as I mind having it hijacked from my paycheck. That bothers me. Right? And even in the consumption tax world, things like unprepared foods and water, that's fine. Like, make those exempt. Right? Or if people are, particularly poor or on a program or something like that, those individuals can be exempt. That's the bottom, 2%, 3% of the population. But that's it. And even that's not permanent. Like, you need to get your life correct. But this is the direction that the country needs to be in. So I'm going to go ahead at 6:48 right now. It's a little bit less than I was planning to go, but I think I've said all I need to say. Let me just do a quick scan. So I'm going to be jumping on from time to time, guys. I promise I will get things like the comment bar and other things corrected. They moved the tool that I was using since I was last on. They moved it from a Chrome extension to an application. And I thought I was brilliant they gave you the choice, and I thought I was smart by using the application, and it was not so smart. It didn't work. So I got to go figure out why, maybe run some test runs. But yeah, I got some shorts that I'm going to be releasing on Convention Estates. I got a few things up my sleeve here that I plan on doing in the coming months. So I just want to make sure people get a chance to see it. I know the largest base is by far on Facebook with some 18,000 followers. Trying to grow X is kind of a big deal to me, X. So I would like to see, if you have not already followed me on X, if you could just take a wander over there if you're there already. It's at Patriot Think Tank. It's one T in the middle. So at Patriot, and that same T starts Think Tank. So it's a long story why it's different than everything else, but that's how it is. Or you could look it up as the Patriot Think Tank. You'll see my golden mug on there with the blue check, and you'll know that it's me. So I could definitely use a follow there as well. But that being said, guys, until next time, my apologies for any rust that was going on. I know I was double speaking on the mic earlier, and my mic was off for a second in the middle. So I apologize for that. I'll get those things ironed out. But until next time, I got to say it was good. It was good to be back on, and I look forward to doing this again. I look forward to creating more content and getting back out there and getting on the scene. So until next time, folks, don't forget to drop a comment whenever you get to watch this. Drop a comment from where you're watching it from, and I'm out. In just a second. Hold on. Some more quirky stuff, right? The way it goes.